Tupac album discography. There are various perspectives on what Tupac's album discography is. The most mainstream view of Tupac's discography of albums credited to Tupac as a solo artist is a 10-album collection consisting of Tupacalypse Now, Strictly for My N.I.G.G.A.Z, Me Against the World, All Eyes on Me, Makaveli, The Don Illuminati, The 7-Day Theory, Are You Still Down, Until the End of Time, Better Days, Loyal to the Game, and Pac's Life. Other mainstream versions include those 10, but also observe Thug Life Volume 1 and Tupac and the Outlaws, Still I Rise, as part of the official Tupac discography to make a total of 12. And others include Tupac's Greatest Hits double CD. Due to how historic of an album it is, it's RIAA certified diamond. It is the all-time best-selling greatest hits album in the rap genre. It contained previously unreleased tracks, and its inclusion brings it to a total of 13. And others go so far as to include the best of Tupac, Thug, and Life. Those were all the mainstream versions. Now, contrast that perspective with the one held by online Tupac scholars. And that's a 14-album collection that looks like this. While the first two albums are the same, they then observe Thug Life Volume 1, the demo, which never really came out, as the third album, and then Thug Life Volume 1, the officially released version, as the fourth album, and then Me Against the World, All Eyes on Me, Don Illuminati, and then they include One Nation, and then they have Are You Still Down, and then they also include Tupac and the Outlaws, Still I Rise, and then Until the End of Time, Better Days, Loyal to the Game, and Pac's Life. This expanded perspective, including the Thug Life demo original version and One Nation, I believe opens a can of worms because it modifies the definition and criteria of what should be considered the official Tupac discography. And of course, what is official Tupac has been debated for 19 years. If we are going to be adding a Thug Life album that never officially released, as well as a The Nation album that didn't release until years later, then where do we draw the line? Additionally, there are many who observe the Makaveli 2 through 17 bootlegs as part of the discography, and they have their own legit arguments for that. It's possible that some of the internet historians may not have been old enough to live through Tupac's entire career from the beginning as it had unfolded, as I did. You will see how murky these waters become as we twist and bend the rules as to what the official Tupac anthology discography body of work, whatever you want to call it, is as the narrow scope widens. So let me go through my perspective of thinking through Tupac's legacy and the considerations that may or may not have been previously considered, and of course, I welcome all of your input as well in the comments. Let's begin with what we all agree on. Tupacalypse Now, released on November 12th, 1991, is considered Tupac's first studio album. But as we examine Tupac's body of work, how do we consider the Digital Underground albums? After all, we're including Thug Life and the Outlaws. Those were groups of which Tupac was a member, and Tupac also was a member of Digital Underground. Digital Underground. Before I was a Tupac fan, I was a Digital Underground, Shock G, Money B fan, and they are the ones who introduced me to Tupac initially in the music video for Same Song, but then later on reinforced him in the music video Trapped. I was initially lured to the song Trapped in the music video because Shock G was in the video on the chorus, and I used to think Shock G was just so cool. I would used to watch that video for Shock G more than Tupac at the very beginning. Digital Underground is best known for the Humpty Dance on the album Sex Packets. When telling any story about the biography or discography of Tupac, Digital Underground is an important part as Tupac got his start in Digital Underground, and Shock G and Money B play a role in Tupac's pre-Death Row era career. Mainstream Tupac history puts his first official appearance as The Same Song by Digital Underground from the Nothing But Trouble soundtrack, a movie in which he appeared in, and it was also included on the This Is an EP Release album by Digital Underground. In addition to Same Song, on the This Is an EP Release by Digital Underground, Tupac can be heard on background vocals on the track The Way We Swing. I've also heard that he had written part of a song on Digital Underground's first album, Sex Packets, but I can't verify it. I read it once and I can never find it again. On Digital Underground's Sons of the P album, released October 15th, 1991, a month before Tupacalypse Now, Tupac has a verse on the D-Flow Shuttle and has spoken words on Good Thing We're Rappin' and Family of the Underground, which also features Big Stretch of Live Squad. On the Digital Underground's The Body Hat Syndrome, Tupac has a verse on What's Up With The Love and has a speaking part on the Humpty Dance Awards. Raw Fusion was a spin-off group of Digital Underground consisting of Money B and DJ Fuse, and Tupac is featured on the song Number One With a Bullet. Their album Live from Styletron was released on the same day as Tupacalypse Now was. Additionally, there is an unofficial compilation album known as Tales of a 90s N.I.G.G.A and is a collection of Tupacalypse Now unreleased outtakes and Digital Underground era material. So again, I ask, if we consider Tupac a member of Thug Life and the Outlaws, shouldn't we also consider him a member of Digital Underground? And if so, at a minimum, shouldn't This Is an EP release and Sons of the P be included in the discography? The official studio albums. On November 12th, 1991, Tupacalypse Now came out, featuring the singles and music videos Brenda's Got a Baby, Trapped, and If My Homie Calls. Featured guests on the album include Shock G, Pogo, DJ Fuse, Money B, Mac Moan, Pee Wee, Stretch, Dave Hollister, Ray Love, Angelique, and Poppy. Producers of the album include Digital Underground members Shock G, Money B, DJ Fuse, Raw Fusion, Stretch of Live Squad, Big D the Impossible, The Underground Railroad, Pee Wee, and Jeremy. Other notable tracks on the album are I Don't Give a Fuck and Violent, which were part of a case where someone shot a police officer and blamed it on the Tupacalypse Now album. And this was very similar to the Ice-T Body Count Cop Killer single, which was very notorious at the time period. I think if Ice-T didn't have such a successful mainstream acting career, that Cop Killer would be a bigger part of hip-hop history than it is. It's almost forgotten and banished to the memory hole. And that's probably more Ice-T's doing than anyone else's. That Body Count album was pretty awesome, the first one. But to make my point about Digital Underground, this album, Tupacalypse Now, has a heavy Digital Underground influence. And had Tupac not become the legend that he is, it could have possibly been considered a Digital Underground spin-off album like Raw Fusion and some of the others. After Tupacalypse Now dropped in 91, a month later on December 31st, 1991, was the release of the Juice soundtrack for the movie which starred Tupac. Strangely enough, the soundtrack, which had Tupac's image on the cover, didn't contain any songs by Tupac or Digital Underground. Tupac's second album is strictly for my N.I.G.G.A.Z. and was released on February 16th, 1993, and consisted of 16 tracks. The title contains an acronym of which I spelled out, which is Never Ignorant, Getting Goals Accomplished. The Z is just to make it plural. The original title for the album was rumored to be Troublesome 21 and was supposed to come out in 1992, but officially released with the Strictly title on February 16, 1993. The album had 4 singles and music videos: Holler If You Hear Me, Keep Your Head Up, I Get Around, and Papa's Song. Also notable on the album is Last Words featuring Ice Cube and Ice-T, which was a collaboration everyone wanted to see happen. Not so much with Tupac, but Ice Cube and Ice-T together. Oddly enough, there is a prophetic title on the album, The Streets Are Death Row, but this song had nothing to do with Death Row Records. Additionally, 5 Deadly Venoms featured Tretch, Apache, and Live Squad. Also interesting in retrospect is Papa's Song has Mopreme Shakur on it, and he's in the music video as well, and I think most people didn't recognize who Mopreme Shakur was at the time when that song had came out. Poetic Justice came out in 1993, starring Tupac and Janet Jackson. The soundtrack only contained one song by Tupac, Definition of a Thug N-Word. Janet's song Again was a big part of the movie and was nominated for an Academy and Golden Globe Award, but I don't recall if it was on the soundtrack. And I remember really liking the song at the time and having to wait until the album Janet came out. And I was just like, man, here's a movie with Janet Jackson and Tupac, and they only have one song apiece. That soundtrack should have been all of them. I mean, they're two musicians, they're two recording artists. It's not inconceivable to think that they could kind of pull that off. And wouldn't the viewing population want that anyway? 100% of the viewing audience went to see that movie to see the performance of Janet Jackson and Tupac Shakur. We weren't going for the plot. We weren't going for the storyline. If you saw that, it was for the draw of the actor and actress. The Above the Rim soundtrack came out March 22nd, 1994, and featured Pour Out a Little Liquor by Tupac and Thug Life, as well as bonus tracks Pain and Loyal to the Game. This soundtrack was released by Death Row Records, and it was a fairly significant soundtrack of the time period. Soundtracks used to mean something back then, especially hip-hop themed soundtracks, because it was like getting a really expensively created mixtape. On October 11th, 1994, Thug Life Volume 1 was released. The original version of the album was scrapped and re-recorded due to its content being too controversial. The version that was released consisted of 10 tracks. There are rumors that in addition to the original album that was scrapped, there also is yet another version of the album that has never been released. The notable tracks on the album are Bury Me a G, Cradle to the Grave, Pour Out a Little Liquor, How Long Will They Mourn Me, and Straight Ballin'. There are music videos for Cradle to the Grave, Pour Out a Little Liquor, and How Long Will They Mourn Me. The first single was supposed to be Out on Bail, but that didn't make the album. It is, however, on the unofficial Thug Life Volume 1 demo album. Here are the Thug Life songs that didn't make Thug Life Volume 1, that are on the demo version or the other version or on these collections of songs that you can find around. So you got N-Words in the Pen, Thug Life, Out on Bail, Judgment Day, Time to Get My Drink On, My Definition of a Thug N-Word, Mr. Troublesome, Is It Cool to Fuck, I'm Getting Money, High Till I Die, Fake Ass Bitches, Faced Shootouts, Pour Out a Little Liquor, a different version, Only Fear of Death, Losing It, Straight Out the Gutter, Running from the Police, Lie to Kick It, Heartless, Thugs Get Lonely Too, Open Fire, It Hurts the Most, Let Them Things Go, Hold On, Be Strong, and I'm a Hopeless skit. Me Against the World is either the third or fourth Tupac album, depending on if you consider Thug Life Volume 1 to be a Tupac album. Now, I do consider Thug Life Volume 1 to be a Tupac album, but I often think in my mind that Me Against the World is Tupac's third album, even though chronologically I know it was released fourth. But then again, I also consider the Digital Underground album, so I'm just kind of thrown off. But overall, most people observe Me Against the World as Tupac's third album. It was released on March 14th, 1995, while Tupac was in prison. The singles from the album, with videos, were Dear Mama, So Many Tears, and Temptations. Other notable tracks were If I Die Tonight, Me Against the World, Fuck the World, It Ain't Easy, and Death Around the Corner. A week later, on March 21st, 1995, the Bad Boys soundtrack released starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence and had Me Against the World on the soundtrack. On August 15, 1995, the Show soundtrack came out featuring My Block by Tupac. The fourth album by Tupac was the double CD All Eyes on Me. It was released on February 13, 1996 under Death Row Records. This album was a mega success and considered one of the greatest rap albums of all time and first double CD in hip-hop. Some of the singles with videos were California Love, Two of America's Most Wanted, How Do You Want It, All About You, and I Ain't Mad at You. Other notable tracks from the album are Ambitions as a Rider, Got My Mind Made Up, Life Goes On, Only God Could Judge Me, Can't See Me, Shorty Wanna Be a Thug, All Eyes on Me, and more. Everyone knows this album. It is by far Tupac's most famous album, certified diamond by the RIAA. On April 23, 1996, the Sunset Park soundtrack was released, which contained the song High Till I Die by Tupac. The fifth album by Tupac is Makaveli, the Don Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory. It was released under the name Makaveli and not Tupac. It was completely finished in 7 days and was written and recorded in 3 days. The mixing took 4 days. This is where the 3-Day Theory title may have spawned, as you can hear Tupac say 3-Day Theory near the end of the song Crazy. The Don Illuminati 7-Day Theory was released on November 5th, 1996. The album is the first album to be released after Tupac's supposed death. The 3 singles with music videos are Toss It Up, To Live and Die in L.A., and Hail Mary. After Don Illuminati, there was supposed to be an album called One Nation by Tupac and Boot Camp Click and a whole bunch of other rappers. It eventually came out. The gang-related soundtrack came out on October 7th, 1997 on Death Row Records and contained 4 songs with Tupac: Life So Hard, Staring Through My Rearview, Made N-Words, and Lost Souls. Now, since Tupac was one of the stars of the film and one of the draws to the soundtrack, should the gang-related soundtrack be considered as a peripheral to Tupac's musical legacy? And plus, it came out on Death Row. If you looked at the album cover, you would have thought Tupac and James Belushi made an album together. Posthumous Albums. After Tupac exited and Makaveli entered, unreleased song albums started to emerge. Are You Still Down? Remember Me is considered to be Tupac's 6th album, released on November 25th, 1997. Tupac's vocals from the album were recorded between 1992 and 1994 during the Strictly and Thug Life era. The singles were I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto and Do for Love. Other notable tracks are Hellraiser and Only Fear of Death. It is a double CD. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, after that, in the year 1998, is when the Makaveli 2 through 17 bootlegs all started to show up on the internet. I had just got a cable modem and a CD burner, a 4X CD burner at the time. And I do recall that in 97 was the Are You Still Down album. So I'm thinking it was 98 where the Makavelis came out. And then on November 24th, 1998, Tupac's Greatest Hits was released. Now, this double album contained the singles Changes and Unconditional Love, which were previously unreleased, as well as the video version to California Love. Troublesome 96 and God Bless the Dead were also 2 more previously unreleased songs on the album. The album is certified diamond, and this album, along with All Eyes on Me, are 2 of only 9 diamond hip-hop albums. It is the best-selling rap greatest hits compilation of all time and 20th best-selling rap album. Still I Rise is an album by Tupac and the Outlaws, released on December 21st, 1999. The only single on the album is Baby Don't Cry, Keep Your Head Up Part 2. Letter to the President was in the movie Training Day. The Rose That Grew from Concrete is an album based on the poetry and writing of Tupac, released October 17th, 2000. And it consists of celebrities reading Shakur's poetry and writing in a spoken word format. So it's not really Tupac on the album, although they are reading his creations. So this is one of those real confusing albums. Like, how does The Rose That Grew from Concrete, how does that fit into the discography? Until the End of Time is considered Tupac's 7th album and was released on March 27, 2001. These songs are from the Makaveli era. It is also a double CD. The 2 singles from the album were Until the End of Time and Letter to My Unborn. Most amazing about this is that it was the best-selling hip-hop album of 2001. Imagine that. Other notable tracks on the album are Lil Homies, This Ain't Livin', and My Closest Road Dogs. Better Days is considered the 8th album by Tupac, and it was released November 26, 2002. The 2 singles were Thug's Mansion and Still Ballin'. Other notable songs are When We Ride on Our Enemies and My Block. The tracks on this album are primarily from the Makaveli era, and it also is a double CD. Loyal to the Game is considered the 9th album by Tupac and was released on December 14th, 2004, and was produced by Eminem. The singles for the album were Thugs Get Lonely 2 and Ghetto Gospel. Pac's Life is considered the 10th album by Tupac and was released on November 21st, 2006, and was the 10th anniversary of his fake death. Singles from Pac's Life are Untouchable featuring Crazy Bone, Pac's Life, and Play Your Cards Right. So after Pac's Life is the 10th and final album. And now we'll get into some of the other albums that it's kind of hard to figure out where these play in. So we have the infamous Makaveli and Dillinger, Tupac and Daz, Don't Go to Sleep. And it was released in 2004, and the copyright on it shows Makaveli Records. Now, Afeni sued Daz over the album. And Daz tells the story on a Vlad TV interview about how he had stolen the original Dad tapes and put fake Dad tapes into place with different labels. So now some of the other albums are Tupac Resurrection soundtrack, and this was released November 4th, 2003. You know, the Tupac Resurrection soundtrack, that's an official movie and soundtrack that's part of the real Tupac. It's not like some outside group trying to make money off of his name. So how does Tupac Resurrection fit in, even though the majority of the songs were all previously released? Then we have the New Mix Classics from 2003. Tupac Live was released August 6, 2004. Beginnings, The Lost Tapes, 1998 to 1991, was released on June 12, 2007. New Mix Classics Volume 2 was released August 14, 2007. The original title was Evolution, Duets and Remixes. The Best of Tupac Thug and The Best of Tupac Life were released on December 4th, and they include Dope Fiend's Diner and Resist the Temptation, 2 songs previously unreleased. So since they had previously unreleased songs on it, are Best of Tupac Thug and Best of Tupac Life, are those considered official Tupac albums for the discography? And they seem to have had an authorized and official release. It always threw me off, though, because I'm like, there already is a greatest hits, but then there's a best of. So I was always like, all right, greatest hits, best of. So the greatest hits are the greatest hits, and the best of are like the best of. They didn't necessarily become hits. Because there's like a lot of album tracks, like Ambitions as a Rider. That was never a single, that was never a hit, but that certainly was a best of Tupac. All right, then I remember when I was in high school, a CD came out called Tupac in His Own Words. And it was, I believe, Tretch interviewing Tupac. And then there was some like songs with Tupac and Biggie on there. And it was a good interview. And since it came out in the 90s, you know, I always felt like because it came out in the 90s, it had a legit kind of feel to it, even though it didn't feel really authorized. But being that Tretch was on it, you know, hey, it's Tretch, come on. So Tupac in His Own Words, I don't know where that fits in. And then you have the Last Interview CD that was packaged with the Thug Immortal VHS tape. Now, The Last Interview is, for my life, one of the most impactful experiences that I ever had. Like, listening to that CD was the moment when Tupac sparked at least this brain that was set out to change the world. It gave me the passion on how to express myself and the great concept that what is missing and lacking is self-esteem and self-respect. I gained a lot from The Last Interview. It altered my path in life. It altered my personality. So if we don't include The Last Interview as part of the Tupac discography or body of work, I don't know what to tell you. Then there was some guy named Trap, and it was called like Stop the Gunfight or Tupac and Biggie Running. I never knew what the heck that was. I bought it, and even when I had it, I still didn't know what the heck I had. And to this day, I still don't know how to even think about the Trap. It might have even been more than one album. I don't even remember. I just remember buying it thinking, man, this guy's got no shame. And then you have the Tupac Evolution 12-disc set, which might be what others have referred to as the Makaveli mixtape collection, volumes 2 through 17. I don't know. But there's this, it seems to be that in present day, via the Tupac historians, the Tupac Evolution 12-disc set is like the complete unreleased body of work. Now, really digging into the BS pile, we have Tupac Makaveli the Don, The Way He Wanted It, Volume 1, 2007, and Volume 2 in 2009. We have Makaveli 2001 Revised. And then you wonder, did Makaveli invent the modern day mixtape? And what about Thug Style? There was supposed to be an album called Thug Style. And I think it was, I heard Carcino for Life mention Thug Style in one of his videos. I had never heard of it until he mentioned it, and it might have been Thug Life. Maybe then one of those unreleased albums was Thug Style. I'm not sure, but he did mention that. And there was a song called Thug Style by Tupac. With so many different combinations of the post-Makaveli DK7 material, it's hard to know what is what. As I had mentioned earlier, I had the Makaveli bootlegs in 98 when I got my cable modem and 4X CD burner. And then as the songs were modified and released on the official releases, I became disillusioned with it all because I no longer knew how to classify his collection. Do you go with the original bootlegs or do you go with the officially released versions? And you would think it'd be the officially released ones, but there was always the argument that that's not the way Tupac had intended the music to come out. So you didn't know who to go with, but then it's like the bootlegs, you're like, well, that's a bootleg. So it was just like, all right, I just want what Tupac wanted. I don't know what is this? Who the heck knows? And you have some people who appreciated the instrumentals from the original, and then those that appreciated the instrumentals being updated to fit with the time period. And then there were others who preferred the originals. There were modifications. So it all just really threw me off. And what really threw me off was that there was no consistent consensus. Some like the new versions, some like the old versions. And I'm like, well, what the heck, man? So I've done my best to give a relatively thorough presentation of the entire Tupac body of work. I hope there was something in there you might not have known about. If I've left anything out, go ahead and let us all know about it in the comments. If you also want to provide links, to offsite storage, cloud stuff, anything you want to share, feel free. Now, if the YouTube spam filter, it might initially block whatever you post, but I periodically go in and I approve all comments. I'm all about free speech. Say what you want. If you want to say I'm an idiot and I don't know anything about Tupac, go ahead. You can do that too. Everything is welcome. If you have any info of any rumored future Tupac releases, feel free to share that as well. And yes, I am aware of all the fan-made mixtapes of Tupac, all the remix albums. They come out, it seems like, once a week. So if you have one that you created and you want to share that, or one that you like, go ahead and post that too. I'm not going to censor anything. It's just like, how far do I go in including these things? I try to just keep it on things that have a barcode and are sold on Amazon, or that I saw in a store. They might not be sold anymore, but things that have sort of something official to them historically. If you would like to purchase the CDs of any of the albums mentioned in this video, there are links in the description below. If you've enjoyed this presentation and are not already a subscriber, consider subscribing to this channel. I try to deliver unique information that you might not find elsewhere. And thanks for watching. And Tupac Makaveli lives on through all of us. We are all the brain that got sparked. So I'll see you in the next video.